My name is Jamie Snow. I am a partnership specialist here at Yellowdig. It is my job to own and manage the relationship within the University of Tennessee system. Specifically today, we're talking about the Knoxville location, but this conversation could be applicable to any of the other locations within the Tennessee system. So prior to coming to Yellowdig, I was a program director at a career college, and I also worked for a major publishing company for about 5 years. At my time at the actual career college, in addition to the program director, I was in the classroom teaching in person at the time to all of my students. And at night, I was going home and working on my MBA online. And I was making connections with my students during the day, which was great and wonderful most of the time and most days. But then I would come home and work on my MBA, and I didn't feel that same level of connection. And being an instructor, I felt like I knew how to make those connections with people, regardless of the modality. But more times than not, I felt like it wasn't happening for me and my classmates. Didn't know anything about Yellowdig at the time, but I really did think there was a better way to have engagement in an online environment. And I kind of went back and started thinking about my own personal experience in my undergraduate degree and some of my hybrid courses. And, was I making connections with those students and instructors at that time too? And so it just made me kind of start down this path of, what is the better way? I can't be the only person in the world that thinks this way. And eventually I found out about Yellowdig. And so now I'm here. And today I'm joined by my colleague, Deborah. So if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Jamie. Hi. Yeah, I'm Deborah Oberding. I'm the success manager here at Yellowdig. My role is to help you implement with best practices and pedagogy so you have enjoyment with Yellowdig as well as your students. Before coming to Yellowdig, I was an instructor in the School of Education for many years. Excuse me. From that role, I went to an instructional designer position for about 5.5. Most recently, before coming to Yellowdig, I was the educational technologist. So always was wanting to connect with the students, of course, and working with faculty. We always tried to develop different strategies and ideas to do that in the online environment and basically the face-to-face as well. And so when I found out about Yellowdig and actually implemented it with one of the universities that I worked with, it was a game changer. So glad to be here at Yellowdig. I've been here about a year and looking forward to working with all the future Yellowdiggers out there.
Thanks, Deborah. And probably most importantly, we are joined by one of your esteemed UTK colleagues this morning, Joe Buckley. So Joe, if you want to take a minute to introduce yourself.
Good morning. That's really overselling it. But Joe Buckley, I'm the Director of Executive Education in the Haslam College of Business. Basically, that means I wear two hats. I'm on the supply chain faculty, teach these days primarily in our online MS supply chain program. And then I spend the other half of my time working with organizations on training and development needs. And was asked to join because I've been using Yellowdig both in the degree courses that I teach for 3+ years now, as well as several of the non-degree programs that we offer through Haslam.
All right. Thanks, Joe. And yeah, we can, talk about all the great things that Yellowdig does all day, but definitely for longer than the hour that we have this morning, or during the hour that you might watch this recording back at any point in the future. But I always think that it's best that if you have someone that's local, a colleague specifically in this case, because Yellowdig is implemented within within UTK, that I think that it's important to hear those firsthand experiences that just are kind of more relevant and mean more to the overall audience. So I'll just put up a quick agenda. This is just kind of what we plan to go over today. We'll talk about just an overview of the Yellowdig solutions, kind of how the platform came to exist, the efficacy around the platform, examples from communities that we have that have been anonymized, so all of the personal data from students has been removed. And then we'll also allow Joe a few minutes to talk about some of his experiences and that information has also been anonymized for any UTK students that you might see. We'll definitely go into the platform just to give you kind of a quick demonstration overview, and then if there are any questions and answers and next steps at the end. So as we go through the webinar, feel free to drop questions into the chat or the Q&A feature within Zoom. So this is kind of how we think of Yellowdig end to end. And a lot of what we'll talk about today is the middle use case. So not only are we talking about the learner life cycle, but specifically kind of how Yellowdig is used in courses. But there is this idea and a way that Yellowdig can be used on either side of course material. So from a pre-enrollment perspective and a post-enrollment perspective. So we like to think of Yellowdig as a digital campus. So it's that end-to-end platform. As a platform, we've been in use for over the past 7 years. And in that time, we've come to realize that we definitely have an impact in the ability to improve the engagement and the deepening learning that students are actually, that's actually occurring with students in courses and in the classroom. But it is just one piece of the broader student journey. So what we have found over the past 7 years is that Yellowdig can also be used in this pre-enrollment phase. So whether it's through a student orientation or whether it's that the institution is trying to prevent melt from the time that the student has agreed to become a student until classes actually start, there's no reason why they can't go ahead and start making that sense of belonging and community so that they know that they're evolve and evolve for life. I know that, the Tennessee system and UTK specifically, there's a lot of pride around being a graduate and a student of the institution. And so we can definitely do that from the moment that they say yes and accept all the way through into their lifetime as a alumni to the institution. So I mentioned a little earlier in my introduction that if I were to think back on my own educational experiences, I think that I often first think about it's just a series of classes. So courses that I took, like I might remember like, yeah, I really liked this one, didn't care too much for this, and can't even believe that I took a theater class, like all of these different things. But then it starts to become a little deeper for me. And I start to think about the relationships and the friendships that I cultivated during those years in college. And it was a few more than 4. So I think about like, what does that truly mean? I still have some of those friendships. And I think that it is that in-between space. It's those things that make me smile when I think about college, inside and outside of the classroom, but specifically maybe outside even more. And it really helps me remember like there's all of this space. I was only in class, maybe 3 days a week, couple hours at a time. And maybe I had some Tuesday, Thursday classes mixed in some terms with those Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes. But there is this fabric that ran through my entire experience. And that's also another way of thinking about Yellowdig. And if we kind of relate this to the current situation, the pandemic has, in air quotes, ended, and everyone is kind of back to a semi-normal situation and experience. And I think that if there is one thing that the pandemic taught us from an educational perspective, it is that we had some room for improvement in the way that we present online learning and hybrid learning and even face-to-face learning. It became challenging to take something that we were used to doing face-to-face and immediately turn it into another modality almost instantaneously and overnight. So I think that most people are in agreement that students are not engaged or engaged in the way that they could be. So Yellowdig is definitely a platform that can help connect all of the learning experiences from this pre-enrollment phase that I talked about a few minutes ago, all the way through the course phase and then into the alumni. So if you think about from an alumni perspective, Yellowdig gives students a place where they can network. It gives students a place where they can be mentors and examples for undergraduate students. So there are a lot of different ways in which the platform can be used. And as an educational company, we're definitely focused on the outcomes of the platform, not just the software itself. So this slide will translate into this one, which is how we kind of look at Yellowdig as a whole. So it is one platform, and we can then, based on the use case of Yellowdig, decide if it's going to be used in this pre-life cycle, if it's going to be used in the courses, or if it's going to be used in the alumni situation. So we consider Yellowdig as Yellowdig Connect for pre-enrollment. So that's giving the students a place to meet each other, to make those connections, to find similarities in and among one another. Yellowdig Engage is where 90+% of our business is currently. It's where Yellowdig is used in the platform to, again, give students agency and that place to make those connections and bring in their own real world experiences directly into the course materials that are being taught. And then in that alumni and graduate arena allows them to have that space to network, to reconnect with undergraduates, to be those mentors and things like that. So these are kind of all the ways that in which we look at Yellowdig. And when we think about the ways in which Yellowdig can be used, we then also think about who are the people that are using Yellowdig. So we're looking at Yellowdig from a student perspective, we're looking at Yellowdig from an instructor perspective, and we're looking at Yellowdig from an administrative or student success perspective. So if we look at it from the student perspective, it's all about the connected learning experience. So the platform has measurable benefits for all of the parties. Starting with the students, the benefits are definitely going to be that deeper learning. So 91% of our students that were surveyed in the fall of 2021 said that they felt satisfied with Yellowdig's remote learning experience. It's definitely a safe space for students to exchange the ideas that they have as it relates to the course material, or maybe the overall institutional experience. And we'll show you some of those examples in a few minutes. From a social perspective, we're definitely creating a place for the students to connect peer-to-peer, whether that's through support or peer-to-peer learning. 86% of the students reported that they felt more connected to their peers when they were using the platform. From the instructor perspective, we definitely hear from like 85% of our instructors that they have a renewed sense of interest in their subject matter. And it's because what they're doing in the classroom when it relates to Yellowdig is different from what they might have previously been doing from an online assignment, whether that is discussion or otherwise. So it really allows them to be in a different role, but still very active within the Yellowdig community. And 50% of the instructors surveyed show that they have less time that they're spent answering like routine questions and grading and just kind of some of those mundane tasks that actually happen. And then finally, from like an administrative perspective, we're looking at student improvement from retention and persistence. And you'll see that 8% were reported, an 8% increase was reported to improve student persistence, and then a 9% increase in student pass rate from class to class and term to term. So that's probably enough talking for me for a few minutes. I'm going to let Deborah kind of talk about these next few slides that are examples out of the platform.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, so right here we have, as Jamie talked about, the aspect of belonging and making sure, hold on, there we go. So what we see here is that Yellowdig in action, if you will. As Jamie talked about, that sense of belonging and feeling like they're part of a community. This is what you're looking at here is a screenshot of a post by a student in an organic chemistry class. So in Yellowdig, students have the agency to post and comment to earn classroom participation, which counts towards their participation grade. But what I want to focus on is the type of engagement. Post once, comment twice, write a short essay, watch this video, write a response. It can create engagement, but doesn't necessarily lead to the deeper learning type engagement that Jamie's referenced. So what does apple juice have to do in organic chemistry class? So let's dig a little deeper and look at the next slide. So here, what you're looking at is a post by Nicole Smith. So see how she starts the post. I just found out. Cool. How often do you see students talking about organic chemistry is cool? Well, there may be some. I know I never thought organic chemistry was that cool. Nicole was clearly hooked. So then she goes to say, I always get apple juice at the dining hall. We have relevance. And then notice the agency. I used a basic Google search to figure out the chemical formulas of each. And again, remember, this is an organic chemistry class, and she's referencing apple juice. So then she goes on to say, she's basically applying the chemistry with the glucose and all of the chemistry formulas there that you see. So we have joy, found out something really cool. We have relevance, we have agency, and then we do have that application. And then moving on here, then she goes into saying what I thought was really interesting. So again, that deeper reflection, connection, and really connecting her real life experience to that. And so most of us know that apple juice is an organic product, but she gleaned the insights that it's made out of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and just 3 elements. So this something would be hard for her to forget. And then her friend is relates to this observation and says she's going to try apple juice now. So we're seeing the metacognitive process, like thinking about the student's thinking, and then of course, how they can connect and relate. And again, when we talk about this information in this post, we're really talking about that deeper learning rather than just posting once, commenting twice, and the connection and the part of feeling a community members of learners that they can connect to because of the content that they're talking about, which in this case is apple juice that relates to organic chemistry.
Thanks, Deborah. I definitely, every time I walk through the grocery store now and I see apple juice, I think about work, and I'm probably, it's not during working hours, but it's definitely worth it because I think those examples are around us everywhere. And so much of what makes Yellowdig relevant, whether it's in face-to-face classes, hybrid, online, whether it's in the actual classroom, or we're talking about those other 2 use cases, pre-enrollment and post-enrollment, is that there is relevance. And I do think that so many students have something to say. They just need a place to say it, and they need to feel like they have that ability and that freedom to talk about what it is that relates to what they're learning, because each of us come to a particular course with a set of experiences, and mine are different from yours and yours are different from mine, but it doesn't mean that we can't share them and see how they relate to one another. So much of the Yellowdig platform is based on the inquiry of framework and that belief that while we're all here together in Zoom, it doesn't all mean that we got here in the same way and that we have the same experiences, but we're looking for that ideal place where everything can come together. So the instruction piece can come together with the student learning piece and really make this ability to have everything cohesive and jive in one place at one time. So these are a couple other examples that we have. These are just from the other 2 use cases, so kind of those pre-enrollment cases. Here we have an example of students who are returning to coursework after maybe a while of being away, and they're just being a little bit vulnerable here. So this person is saying, I'm looking to connect with other mature age students. I'm returning to study. I'm a middle-aged mom and want to pursue my dream of having a bachelor in science. And she is really saying, like, I want to help motivate you, and I hope that you help motivate me. And then 51 other comments are made on this particular post. You see some of the reactions and the emojis here that are given. And then you have someone that chimes in and says, I can definitely relate to what you're saying. Mature age student, working a lot in addition to going to school, but I have faith in us. We're going to be able to do this. So they're already making those connections and encouraging one another just with these introductory posts. You have other people that continue to chime in. I have 3 kids. I'm also a single parent, terrified and excited at the exact same time. And I feel like, so often when I read stuff like this from students, it reminds me of, I felt the same way. We were talking before this webinar started, like most stressful part of this, I feel like, is like getting the screen up, right? And then like Deborah's like, I think that's stressful too. And so we talking about like how many times we've done this, and whether it's, you know, me teaching online yoga in my spare time, or whether it's giving a presentation for Yellowdig, like there's all of these things that those are my experiences and they related to her. And so it's that relatability that we're looking for at whatever level that students and instructors are able to do that. Again, just, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think also, Jamie, you know, that connectedness, right? No matter what stage you are in the learning journey, once you have that connection with the other people in the class or your Yellowdig community, it just kind of lessens the anxiety about the course, about like, you know, the previous post you had about jumping in as an adult learner. So again, I think that connection is that social presence that Yellowdig really offers.
Yeah. And then the last one here that we'll talk about is just someone actually taking their degree field and relating it to their actual life. So I'm choosing to look at this graduate certification in autism studies because autism affects me personally. And so she goes on to talk about her children. And then someone else is doing psych grad work and working full time with 2 autistic kids. So these are some of the examples that we pull out just on a regular basis to show as we give these presentations. But we also wanted to give Joe just a few minutes to talk about his experiences, and these are some of the things that we found in communities throughout the UTK system. So we'll go through a couple of these just kind of as they relate to the experiences that Joe will talk about as well.
As opposed to talking through each of these slides and whatnot, I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of my experience, I think, with Yellowdig. And, you know, Jamie asked me to do this a few weeks ago, and because we've been using it for several years now in both degree and non-degree platforms in my area. So when we started to think about launching our master's program, our online master's program, one of the things that was challenging in developing the course that I teach was trying to figure out how are we going to develop that connectivity for our students that you would get in a face-to-face master's program, which is what I went through when I was a student, and quite honestly recall the fact that I learned probably as much, maybe even more, from my peers in those classes than I did from the instructor, just because of their varied backgrounds and some of their work experience and whatnot. So Yellowdig's the tool we landed on, and we've been using it for several years. And, you know, basically what we've been talking about this morning, I found to be true. The way we use it in my class is more of a student-led board as opposed to an instructor-led board. That doesn't mean that I'm not on there regularly. It doesn't mean that I don't periodically chime in, but we really wanted to use this to drive that peer-to-peer learning, that peer-to-peer connectivity. And I've been pretty happy with how things have turned out. Couple things to point out: it works well with Canvas from a grade perspective. Grade passback's easy. Setting up the course or setting up the tool is easy. So it is a great way to measure participation without creating a lot of work from a grading perspective on the instructor. I like the way that students have used it. There's been, you know, some students create polls to find out how other students feel on certain topics. A lot of current events get posted, which drive a lot of good discussion. And then, you know, finally, a lot of, you know, if there's a topic that they're passionate about that we've gone over, or if they've got a question on it, they'll post it and tend to get a lot of feedback from peers who either have the same question or have thoughts on it. So it's done a good job of, you know, replicating that peer-to-peer bonding that goes on in a traditional master's program. I'll shift gears. I've also launched a non-degree program that is probably our most successful open enrollment non-degree program that we've ever had in Haslam, quite honestly. And we've been using it because in that open enrollment to drive that peer-to-peer experience. But in this case, you know, this fall we have 71 participants from 26 different companies. So there's a lot of company to company interchange, a lot of cross-industry learning going on and discussion. I see it used a lot to kind of find out how other companies are doing certain things. And then finally, I'm also using it in a custom program that we're doing with a major retailer with headquarters in Arkansas. And in that program, we've got 200 of their supervisors and managers, and they've been using this closed board. And it's been interesting because it drives a lot of discussion, not only on the course topics and whatnot, but it's connecting a lot of their buildings geographically that are geographically separated. And I see them picking each other's brains on how do you do this at your facility, what happens in your warehouse, etc. So it's driving some relationships cross geography, even within one organization. So as I typically do when I speak, I can ramble on about this stuff for a long time. I don't know, Jamie, if we want to open up for some questions or thoughts or.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those experiences. It's definitely insightful, and we do have a couple of questions that came in from Pam, so we'll get to answering those. And I just want to go back and highlight what you said about 71 participants from 26 different companies. So that literally means like these people could be anywhere in the world, and especially these 26 companies are probably all over the world, and they're able to talk and compare and discuss about things that are important to them from an educational perspective, how it's relating to, you know, how are you doing it compared to how are we doing it. It's not saying I'm doing it right and you're doing it wrong, but like let's pick out what's best from you and figure out a better way to do it. It's just their ability to learn from each other, and that's so impressive. And many of these examples are from those two types of places that you mentioned, Joe. So this is from the group that from the spring term. So this current term, these were some relative and engagement pieces that came from something that was current in the news. And so it's a great example.
Yeah, just Jamie, just to kind of reemphasize what you just mentioned about those 26 companies, we definitely have international participation in that program. It's not unusual to have folks from Europe or Asia or South America in our non-degree programs, but that also goes for our online master's program. We have representation from a lot of different organizations, as well as a lot of different geography, whether it's domestic across the US or international. It's not uncommon to have folks from Europe or Asia or even South America in those classes as well, which is part of the benefit of having an online program like that.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, really, that's so amazing when you think of 26 different companies. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And, you know, it's, this is probably a pretty cliche saying, but see something, say something. So, you know, regardless of the time of day, and as it relates to the material, regardless where I am in the world and what time zone, I can come into Yellowdig. I can make a comment or a post as it relates to something that is to the subject matter, and then people can come in and comment and react to that when it's convenient for them. And I think that that's really what we see so often, is that students are able, you know, we have videos in the platform of students that were in a public safety course and were about to use a crosswalk to cross the street, and it was relevant to what they were doing, and it was the amount of time that the crosswalk stays so that you can walk. Is it enough time? Is it not enough time? And you can do up to a 90-second video right within the platform. And so that is a real world experience where I don't have to sit down and type everything. I can literally show you and narrate the video as I'm walking as to what I want to do. So yeah, great examples. I do want to, because this is being recorded and people could watch it back, I'll just read what is in the chat from Pam. And I'm interested in using Yellowdig for engagement during the early phases of a program. Can you discuss your recommendations on how to implement a forum for the post-admissions phase? Do you recommend one board for all students, regardless of when they start the program, I would think that older discussion threads would get lost in the mix. Or do you recommend creating a new board for each new enrollment period? In that case, students would not get to know the students who began the program in previous semesters. All great questions, all great points. And Pam, I think the easiest answer to your question is it depends on the number of students. So, and it also depends on if they're in cohorts. So if they were to be in cohorts, then yes, you could do a specific cohort community, and that cohort community could last for the duration of their program or time of study. If it's a smaller group of people, say like 25 or 50, then you might want to leave one large Yellowdig community open for everyone. But if we're talking like hundreds or thousands of students at a time that are coming in, then you could have one Yellowdig community for these people that start at this time, and then you could put the next 100 or 1,000 people into another Yellowdig community. So what we find is that the whole purpose of Yellowdig is conversation and connection. So what we want to ensure that we don't do is limit that ability to connect or converse. So that's why I'm kind of giving these broad parameters. But yeah, definitely a conversation that we can have offline and in greater detail that's specific to your program and how you're thinking that you might be able to use it. We just want to ensure that whatever we decide, one large Yellowdig community or smaller Yellowdig communities as students come in, that we are encouraging those conversations rather than diminishing them by taking the group and dividing them into smaller groups. I can show you when we're about to go into the platform, and so we can show you kind of how stuff comes to the top of the feed and why it comes to the top of the feed, because the algorithm, the AI generation within the platform is going to push the things that are most relevant and being interacted with the most to the top. So yeah, there's a couple of ways that, and you can also sort and filter. So through our topic tags, so there's a lot of ways that students could see older conversations that could still be relevant. There's also permalinks that you all can post as administrators that would bring a conversation back to the top. So that would be another great way that if there was something you wanted to highlight from 6 months ago to a new group that's coming in, you could use that permalink feature as well.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so beneficial about Yellowdig, right? We can fine tune it to your needs and have what we call a design session and brainstorm on your needs and the amount of students, and then create that community from there. Great question. Okay, yeah. We are going to get into the platform soon. And when we're in the platform, we're going to really look at how and why Yellowdig improves your course. A few of the 4 pillars that we're going to focus on once we get into the platform is motivation. So Yellowdig not only motivates the students because of the different variety that they have when posting and commenting and just the look and feel of it, but really also motivates instructors because of those same reasons, and also kind of not the Monday morning doom and gloom of grading discussion questions. Course relevance, as Pam was talking about, her course relevant topic tags may be a little bit different than Joe's. But again, topic tags are the way that you keep those conversations course relevant. You do have topic tags that can be, water cooler chat, whatever you may, but again, they're not point bearing topics. And Jamie will get more into that as we get into the platform. And then instructor presence. It's enjoyable. You get to be an active member in the community. You get to basically be a guide on the side, giving accolades, which we'll talk about, jump into conversations, really enjoy your students and connect with them in the Yellowdig community. And then also in the platform, the 4th thing we're going to look at is the data to inform your teaching, which is type of formative assessment, if you will, seeing which topic tags are used the most and by whom, and can kind of fine tune your creation of topic tags as you go through the Yellowdig community as well. So this is our 4 pillars of focus when we get in.
Deborah?
Yes.
I apologize to interrupt, but that was one point I did want to make that I left off of mine, which was another way that we do use this is prior to our live sessions via Zoom with our students. A lot of times this is a great source for mining what is that topic they're either having the most difficult with from this prior week's learnings, or what are they most interested in. So it's also a great tool for kind of structuring your live sessions and your discussions with your students. So that was one point that I think I failed to make that I just wanted to reemphasize since you're bringing it up.
Yeah, that is great. That's great to know. Yeah, that makes so much sense, right? You can see, and again, with your 26 different companies who may have more experience in one thing than the other, and they could hold a little informative Zoom session for whoever would like to join. So thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, so this is showing the Canvas kind of section where students would go. So these are our demo communities, and these would be course shells that students are actually taking for a particular term. So we can click into the actual platform directly from Canvas. We are integrated into the Canvas LMS at UTK. You all are using LTI integration 1.3, so the most up-to-date integration for the launch, which is perfect. And you'll see that it takes me directly into the platform. I can also keep open the LMS into a separate tab so that if I, as the student, need to go back to the LMS for some reason, I can do that really easily. Otherwise, I'm just launched directly in. Let's see if this is large enough. Yep. So I'm just going to scroll through the Yellowdig platform for a second through the feed. Don't feel like you necessarily have to read everything that's coming off the screen right now. I just want you to see kind of what you might notice from the single scrolling feed in the center here. Yellowdig often reminds people of social media. And while it is like social media, what we have done is taken the best parts of social media, put them into the closed platform. So this is an educational environment that was created for education. It's not a piece of software or technology that was adapted from something else and then made to fit into education. It was an educational product from the very beginning. I think that's really important to stress. You'll see that the different conversations here are kind of blocked off by a line, and then you'll see that the original post is in a white background along with the comments being in gray backgrounds. Depending on what's best for me as a learner, I can collapse these. I can sort them newest to oldest, oldest to newest. So if I've read something and no longer want to see it, make the feed look a little cleaner for myself, I'm able to do that. Usually as we scroll through, what people tell us is that they notice there's a lot of color on the screen, whether it's some of these videos and multimedia pieces that you see, whether it's these accolades, which are badges that have been awarded by the instructor or the TA, whether it's our topic tags that kind of catch your eye as you go through, the emojis. There's a lot of colorful information on the screen. So I'm going to stop scrolling and just go back up to the top. These are just examples of conversations that are happening in this Intro to Psychology demo course. Joe mentioned earlier about polls, and so this is a particular poll that the student has started within the Yellowdig platform. I can see how many votes have been cast here. It's going to automatically populate the percentage. Do any of you implement the special tactics stronger than SWAT in real life and observe a change in behavior? I'm going to say I've never gotten the opportunity to try. So my vote's been cast. I could also give a reaction here if I wanted. So this is a great way that students are able to be involved with one another, to give input relatively quickly. As Joe mentioned, instructors or TAs could also put up a poll before a particular course section or Zoom meeting. And that poll could be about the last topics that were covered. How well do you think that you understood these? Should we review them? Things like that. It's a great way to really inform the teaching that is about to happen. Before we came into the platform, Deborah mentioned motivation and kind of what draws and motivates students to come into the platform. And so definitely it's going to be points and earning points. So Yellowdig has a patented point system within the actual platform. So these are the point earning rules. I'm going to highlight the first two. These are what we would consider to be and what most people think of as participation points. So if I come into the platform and I make a post with a minimum number of words, I get a certain number of points. If I comment on another user's post with a minimum number of words, I'm receiving a certain number of points. So these are traditional participation points. What really sets the platform apart is what we consider to be our social points. So receiving a comment from another user. So I've made a post. Now Deborah is commenting on that post. And when she comments on that post as the originator of the content, I am receiving the points from her making that comment. And same goes if I have made a post and Deborah gives a reaction to that post, then I am receiving the points from the reaction. And so those are important because it is a way for students to earn points based on the original information that they gave. So why is that important? Because we believe that the point system is helping to motivate students to enter the community often and early, and also to incentivize them for thoughtful conversation. So if I come in here and make a comment, or sorry, if I make a post, maybe I was in a hurry. And so I kind of did the minimum word count, didn't really put in a lot of effort, and I did it the day before I knew the earning period was going to close. So let's say it closes on Wednesday, so I did it late on Tuesday night. It's probably not going to get reacted with a lot. However, if on Wednesday morning, the earning period has started over and I come in and I have more time, I do a little bit of research and I make another post, that might get reacted with and commented on more throughout the week, which means that I'm earning those passive social points because I came in early into the actual earning period versus waiting until later. So we are attempting to change the student behavior as they use the actual platform. And then you can see the accolades here. So these are other ways that I can earn points above and beyond just posting, commenting, reacting, things like that. Deborah, did you have anything you wanted to add about the point system?
I might just interject when we talk about the social presence and that community of inquiry that we touched on a little bit in the slides. We often think that students socially have that place to, comment and react. But in Yellowdig, they truly do, and they get rewarded for that. So I believe that's kind of important, how to connect all that into a learning experience with the cognitive presence and the social presence.
So these are just ways that students can look at how they're earning points. You can see the number of periods, the cumulative totals, the targets, the percentage of the grade. They can look at every single thing that they've done within the log, see how many points they earn for particular things. You can look at different charts and graphs. So there's definitely all this information available to students, regardless of whether they're a visual learner or whether they like to see the information written out, so that they can see where they are from a participation perspective within Yellowdig. And we talked about kind of course relevance and topic tags. So these brightly colored bars of information at the top. So topics and topic tags are definitely made by the institution, whether it's the instructor or the TA or someone that's involved in the administration of the actual course. And so we can come in and make topics relatively quickly and easily. And we do that by typing in whatever we want. So I'm going to type in new topic and I can click submit, and then it's going to go into the actual feed. I have the ability also to bring some attention to the types of topics that I want students to interact with. So if I first want them to talk about personality more than maybe individual differences, I can just take the 3 bars and move them up. So I can take something and move it from the bottom all the way up to the top. I can take information maybe midway down and move it to the bottom. So you'll notice that some of these have individual colors behind them, and then some of them do not have colors. They're kind of dotted lines. And so the ones with colors are going to be topics that are point earning, and then the ones without the colored backgrounds and the dotted lines are going to be non-point bearing topics. So this is important. We talked about a little bit earlier. Are students always going to stay on topic? And the answer is no. So I have that ability to come in and make non-point bearing topics that are important for students. So it might be something like fireside chat or Netflix, something very simple like that, where students could continue to talk about something but not earn points for it. If you do use a non-point bearing topic, students are told as they're using that topic that no points are associated with this. However, I could combine something like stress and help psychology with a question. So non-point bearing plus point bearing, I do have the ability to use multiple topic tags within a single post. What's important, you'll notice this introduction topic, I have the ability to edit these. And so I can make the topic disabled, or I could change it from point bearing to non-point bearing. And that's important because as I go through the term, maybe I want people to receive points in the beginning for introducing themselves, making a short video, but after 3 weeks of a particular course, I might not want that anymore. So I can disable that point earning topic piece. Students who earn topics for their introduction previously will keep those topics and points. They just won't, anyone that uses it in the future won't be able to, quote, game the system using that. So topics are important because they provide context to the conversations that we want students to have. And usually topics are created from the learning objectives. So maybe the very highest level items that we want students to learn and know from a particular course. So those are how topics are kind of determined within a course. They can be done with people like Deborah who are IDs. They can be done with instructors. They can be done within a collaboration within an academic team. So there are many ways that you can come up with how you create your topics. We do recommend that topics are required. So that's important here too. Deborah, anything to add about the creation of topics?
I just might point out, like, you don't see topic as week 1 or week 2 or week 3, because we really want to, dive more into like a student-friendly type of topic tag that they can truly connect to, and use those topic tags to, expand on the knowledge of the course and then bring in outside knowledge as well. So we discourage doing like week 1, week 2, week 3, and more get into exactly what can kind of trigger and prime the pump, if you will, to get those conversations going.
Yeah, and because Yellowdig is a single assignment across the duration of a particular course or time period, there are earning periods, and those are set up just so students don't come in on the first day and earn all their points for the term. They don't come in on the last day and earn all their points, but rather they're in consistently so that they are engaging with one another and within the community over the duration of the time. Since we're on topics, you do have the ability to filter by particular topics. So this is great if I was looking for all the introductions that have been done within the platform. I could sort and filter by the introduction topic tag, and then it will pull up all of the posts and comments that were made that were related to introductions. We're about to talk about instructor presence, and so accolades are an important piece of instructor presence. So I could also filter by accolade, specifically this verified response accolade. This lets me know that it was like the stamp of approval from the instructor. And I could come in here and look at all the verified response posts and comments as I was going to study for maybe a midterm exam or a final exam or even a weekly quiz if you wanted. So as we talk about instructor presence, it's very important that I can't stress enough that the instructor's role within the community. Yellowdig is not a product that you just come in and you set it up at the beginning of the term and then you walk away. We really want instructors to be the model citizens for their students. So as Joe mentioned, we want you to be in here conversing sometimes, giving accolades, participating, commenting, maybe it's giving a reaction or a thumbs up. So you have that ability to participate and be present in the community without feeling like everything that you have to do is writing out a response to a particular comment or question from a student. Another great way that Yellowdig can be used is if students have questions that are of not personal in nature, then they do have the ability to come into Yellowdig and post that question that would be beneficial to the entire group, rather than the instructor feeling like they get the same question 10 times via email and they have to write and copy in the same response 10 different times. Definitely setting the expectation in the beginning of the term is important for the instructor. So starting with maybe an introductory post where you make a video of yourself. You can include your CV like always, but it's also important that, you know, if you wanted, you could come in and do introduction. I moved it. So Deborah, do you see it?
I don't.
I may have actually disabled it. Let me try again. I'll cancel this.
Yeah, while Jamie's
Start
looking at
address.
that, I'll just interject. A lot of instructors that I work with too say, you know, they have their morning coffee, they come into Yellowdig, they read some posts, they comment, they give some accolades, and some do have questions. But I think Joe talked about it earlier too. Having students answer questions as well is a huge part of the learning curve, where they're not only understanding the question, but they're explaining it to the student, and sometimes that student explanation makes more sense than maybe even the instructor. So it is definitely a peer-to-peer community where they're helping each other as well.
Yeah, so I'm just going to make the introduction topic tag and put it at the top.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to come back in. So yeah, it's a great way to kind of set that expectation, to give that model or exemplary post for the actual student. So you have that ability to come in, choose the topic tag that you want. I can start introduction. And then I have the ability to record directly, either whether it's video or audio. This is a 90-second limit. And so I can come in and start to make that video describing maybe the accomplishment. Students can do this as well. They have the ability to, you know, pause and start the recording again, to keep it, you know, decide to start over. So you have that ability. It's a great way for you to be engaging and talk about yourself. You can still do a traditional attachment, whether it's a file, a video that you have from a previous maybe course or a particular subject or topic that you like, put in just regular image. So you have all of these ways. You can add emojis in as you're making your particular post. You saw on one of the slides before we entered the community, one of the students had drawn a person that was thinking with like bubbles coming out of the head. So you have the ability to draw. We talked about polls, and even for courses that are relevant to like STEM courses, you have the ability to come in and use these different types of keyboards that allow you to make functions and equations and stuff like that as you need to. So we often hear that maybe students that are in sciences or STEM courses don't have a lot to say, and I would definitely disagree with that. Students in all subject matters feel like that they have a lot to say. They just need that place to say it. Instructors are important to continue and extend conversations, whether it's by posting or giving an accolade or making those reactions. And it's definitely, as Joe mentioned before, Yellowdig doesn't exist in a vacuum. So even in your face-to-face courses, when using Yellowdig, you can incorporate, you know, inevitably you're going to run out of time, whether it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday meetings or Tuesday, Thursday meetings. You know, go finish this conversation in Yellowdig, or I'm going to make a poll before we meet again next week. Please reply to that poll. So there's a bunch of different ways that people are able to do that. Deborah, anything to add about instructor presence?
Yeah, I think as you showed the post editor, that's, you know, the student experience as well as the instructor experience when they're posting. And again, that motivation with, you know, the video recording with the emojis, it's motivating in itself. So, and yeah, instructor presence, again, I like to say coffee and Yellowdig make a great team.
I do see. Yeah, that definitely doesn't. You don't have to sit down at Yellowdig and feel like you have to spend an hour reading what you see in the platform. I do see a question. It's sometimes overwhelming sorting through all the posts for the week. I feel that if I hand out accolades, and I should read everything so that I'm fairly awarding the extra points, but reading everything is the overwhelming part. So what are some of the best practices for that? And there definitely are a few. So there is this little icon here under the post. So you've viewed this post, so you have that ability to see that. There is this activity piece over here, so we can look at the activity feed. So this will tell us what's happened since the last time we were here. So we have the ability to kind of look at it from an activity perspective. You can definitely know that the things that are being interacted with the most are going to be at the top of the feed. You could use a filter and sort. So if you wanted to sort by date, you could sort for things that were posted within a particular earning period. So if we wanted to see everything that was posted on the 10th, we could pull that up. I do understand the comment about wanting to be sure that you're fair, but we often don't recommend trying to read everything. Just like social media, you don't always read or interact with everything that you see. However, you might be still gaining knowledge by scrolling through the feed. But yeah, definitely personal preference, and we can talk more about that as we need as well. Last bit, as we have only a couple of minutes left, we'll just quickly talk about the data. Probably one of the most important pieces within the Yellowdig system. And so it's going to give you this overall community health score. So giving us the total number of posts, the comments, the reactions, and then the ever important conversation ratio. So in a traditional online assignment, 1 post, 2 comments, the best we could ever see this conversation ratio would be at a 2. We're looking at something that's usually 8 or above. This demo community doesn't always have a lot of activity, so that's why the conversation ratio is a little lower. The activity log is definitely going to show you throughout the duration what's happening. So posts, comments, accolades. This is important from an administration perspective if you want to see how involved the instructor has been over a particular period of time. We talked about this a little bit with Joe and with Deborah earlier. So topics, I can look to see which topics have not been used. If I've covered culture already, then maybe I, as the instructor, come in and make a post using the culture topic tag. If I have looked at, let's see, career applications, and only 1 person made a post with this topic, I might decide that we need to talk about career applications again in the next time that we meet. And you can look at it from a points perspective, from a member's perspective. Last piece I'll show you is just our network graph. So this is a visualization of how the students are connecting. And so the graph is going to show you the ability to draw out the students and how their connections are being made. If I'm worried that a student has not connected, I can definitely pull them over to the side. Might be able to interact with them early in the program, so that might help them from dropping out or feeling like they're not connected to students. The darker the line, the more time students are connecting with each other. And so we're looking for those inbound and outbound interactions. And if it's a large class and the table is too much, you can always just come in and look at the information, or the visualization is too much, you can always come in and look at the information from a table perspective. So as we come up on the top of the hour, Deborah and Joe, anything that you wanted to add?
No, I think you did a good job of covering it. And I even picked up a few more tips going through this last section. So
good.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you all so much for taking the time to either join us live today or to watch this recording back at some point in the future. Thank you all so much and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.